Virgin Radio, Style Rock.
Amici di Virgin Radio, oggi ho l'onore di avere a che fare non soltanto con uno dei musicisti più importanti dell'attuale scena rock, ma anche con uno dei produttori che hanno veramente cambiato la storia della musica. Sto parlando di Mr. Butch Vig. How's it going, man? Welcome to Virgin Radio.
Well, thank you for having me. It's early here. I'm having my first cup of coffee, but everything is good.
It's going to be super good on June 11th. No Gods, No Mustards. The brand new album from Garbage will be out. How would you describe the record? If you consider the discography of the band, where will you put it?
Well, I think No Gods, No Masters is probably our most socially, politically charged album. A lot of that to do with Shirley's lyrics, obviously. But I think both lyrically and musically, it's very much a reflection of the craziness that happened in the world in 2020. I think just as we are all forced into isolation with lockdown and looking at the crazy politics here in the U.S. and elsewhere, the songs very much became looking in the mirror and seeing what we were seeing out in the world.
Yes, but I was reading that this is actually a pre-lockdown record. I mean, you started working in 2018, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we did sessions in early 2019 in Palm Springs, which is about 2 hours outside of LA. And it was a house that a friend of the family's had, and we just camped there for 2 weeks, and it was very relaxed. And the initial song jams were pretty... I don't know how to describe it. They were more sort of atmospheric and almost symphonic and quite beautiful sounding. And then we brought the sessions back to LA and started working on the tracks. And Shirley's lyrics just got more and more pointed and more direct. And the music changed. It morphed into something with a lot more bite and a lot more energy to it. And we finished tracking on March 15th of 2020, and then LA went into lockdown the next day. We thought we would have the record done in about a month, but forcing everyone into isolation just slowed the process down. And so I had time to work. I'm sitting in my home studio here. I had time to work on the record. Shirley finished writing lyrics and singing at home. Duke and Steve had to do some guitars and keyboards via file sharing and send them to me. And it took about 4 months to actually finish the record. And during that 4 months, the record got tauter and more sharp sounding. And in the lyrics that Shirley finished, especially then, just got more biting. We finished mixing in September, October. But as I said, I really feel like it does sort of represent that time period for us, the sound and the feel of the album.
Everybody in the rock scene probably think that for Garbage, this schedule could be, okay, we're going to collect some vocal memories, and then we're going to send it to Butch, and he's going to make the magic happen. But I think that this record is a collective effort, right?
Yeah, we started writing. We didn't have any song ideas. We went into the first sessions in Palm Springs with a completely blank slate. And so Duke and Steve and I would start just messing around on guitar, drums, and keyboards and come up with some sort of loose jam. And then Shirley would sort of react to it and start just spontaneously singing lyrics and melody ideas. So very much the whole record was written by the four of us. And even the production, I mean, we butted heads the whole way. We're a dysfunctional democracy. We love each other and get along really well, but we do argue all the time. So the record is the four of us in a room, really just going at it. And I think you can also hear that in the tracks. There's and some of the songs have a tension to them, but it's a good tension.
Talking about the lyrics, like you said, it's probably the most political record in your discography, in your catalog. But it's not only politics, or maybe we can add politics to maybe our religious contest. There's a couple of songs that I've been able to listen to that feature the words God, which is the relationship you have now with that main theme.
Well, I personally am not a very religious person. I was raised Lutheran, but I don't really practice any religion right now. I think when Shirley writes God in there, like one of the songs on the record, Waiting for God to Show Up, it's not so much about a personal religious experience. It's more about power and how, in that particular song, it's also about hope. When when life seems futile, and if you do believe in some sort of God and God is not helping you, where do you go? It's a pretty dark song, really. And you're right, there are quite a few. Well, no gods, no masters. There's another reference there, but that's about power. That song is about not letting people in power, whether it's government or religion or economic power, take control of your life.
In between these difficult months and this difficult year, I would say the awareness on social issues, in my opinion, grew up pretty quickly. I mean, the younger generation, because of the fact that they still live on the internet and they keep stay updated through social media, they kept that awareness alive all through this different months. So maybe also those kind of experiences. I'm thinking about obviously the Black Lives Matter and all the other issues that we've been through as activists of human rights. It's been part of this songwriting.
Yeah, I think artists always reflect on what's going on around them. Great paintings, great books, poems. Anyone who is into art, in whatever form that may take, I think cannot help but be affected by the world that they live in. And I think it's important to address that. I'm excited for the records that are coming out later this year. I think there's going to be a lot of albums that talk about a lot of the issues that all of us are facing around the world. And I think that's important. I think music and art in particular should reflect what's going on in the culture. And I think when times are tough, I think that's when the best music comes out. So I really am looking forward to the records that are coming out the rest of this year.
I was considering a couple of things connected with the punk rock movement. You're about to tour with Blondie. You had some collaboration. Thinking about the deluxe edition of the record, you have featurings of Brody Dalle and other punk rock acts. Which is your relationship now with that genre? Because somebody already said that this record is very ferocious.
Yeah, I still listen to a lot of music, and there's so many great rock bands out there. A lot of people say that punk rock is gone or dead, but that's not true. Pop radio dominates the charts, like R&B and hip hop, and even to some extent EDM or club music. But there's great rock bands out there, and I listen to a ton of new music. And I am in contact with Laura Jane Grace from Against Me, who are one of the greatest rock bands in the world. If you haven't ever seen them, you must see them live because they just kick butt. And they have a new record coming out too, and are getting ready to start touring. So, but everybody says that to me: punk rock is dead or rock and roll is dead, and it's not true.
It's not. You produce some of my favorite punk rock records of all time. Like you probably can see, "Sing the Sorrow" from AFI, "Against Me," "White Crosses" it's still one of my favorite albums. So, I totally agree with what you're saying. Talking about the workflow that probably you had to change a little bit in between this process, like the lockdown and stuff, and the fact that you been forced to work separately on this record. How much change from the previous path you used to walk for a brand new Garbage album?
Well, I'm sitting here in my home studio in Los Angeles, and I've been working nonstop since we went into lockdown last year. And it's just a bedroom studio, but I have some racks of gear. I have a drum set and a piano out in the back room, and some guitar amps, and so I was able to work full time. And I think everyone had to adapt to that. Everyone had to deal with file sharing. A lot of artists who could not tour started trying to do performances from home on, streaming from their iPhone, or they would pre-record them and put them out on their iPhone or on the internet. And I think that's going to carry with us to a certain extent going forward. But as a producer and as a musician, I like being in a room with people. There's nothing better when you're creating music to collaborate and to bounce ideas off each other, to hear what someone is playing and react to it. And the same with music. When you walk on stage and connect with an audience, you can't do that on Zoom or on the internet. You just can't. It's not the same thing. So I think myself and everyone is looking forward to getting back to some sort of sense of normalcy by the end of this year. I mean, like you said, we're hoping to go on tour later this summer in the fall with Garbage and with Alanis Morissette and Liz Phair and with Blondie. And I think as much as everyone is embracing that, you will still see a lot of people doing home recording and doing file sharing, because I think that's going to be a bigger part of our future moving forward.
This doesn't help people that have recording studios, because if everybody just start recording themselves at home, probably I have my own recording studio, and so I'm living a tough moment right now because my name is not Butch Vig.
Well, the great thing about home recording is the technology's gotten so amazing. A kid can have a laptop and record a song with headphones in his bedroom on a Sunday night, put the song out on the internet, it can go viral, and 1 million people can hear it in 24 hours. That did not happen 20 years ago. So it's leveled the playing field. Like I said, you can go into a studio that costs $5 million with the best microphones in the world and make a great recording, but you can also do it in your bedroom with headphones, and that's a really cool thing.
Considering the brand new album from Garbage, this is probably a tough question, but what's your secret to discover which is going to be the priority? I mean, the main instrument on every song. Like, we're gonna focus on drums, we're gonna focus on synth, we're gonna focus on the vocals. How do you choose that in between the process of recording the album?
Every song kind of has its own path. The first track on the record, "The Men Who Rule the World," started with a little, at the very start of the verse, this sort of stop and go drums and this sort of scratchy guitar that sort of reminds me of Talking Heads. But it started with this little bass line, or a little synthy line going boom, 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 boom. And we wrote all the verses to that. And then we sort of built the track up with guitars and bass and drums. And then we wrote the chorus, and the chorus is much heavier with really fuzzed out guitars. It's more like Nine Inch Nails, that's what it sounds like to me anyway. And that song had a certain path it took. If you look at a song like The Creeps, I wrote that main riff on a modular synth. I've got some Moog ARP synthesizers here along the wall. And it was all this sequence riff, and then I kept layering them and distorting them. And then finally, at the end of the recording, Duke and Steve put some guitars on to underneath the synths, and then they added guitars to the chorus. But that song was all written on a modular synthesizer.
This is going to be probably the toughest question of all time for everyone who probably enter a studio once in their life. When do you consider the mix of a song finished?
It's never finished. To this day, I hear so many records that I've produced and mixed, and I still hear things I want to go back and tweak, or I want to go back and change. Usually it's finished when there's deadlines, when the label or the management or the band is saying we have to turn in the masters now. We have to put the record out. In Garbage, Shirley is the one who puts her foot down, because she knows Duke and Steve and me will just sit there and endlessly tweak. We'll be doing something. There's always something you can add or do to the sound. And Shirley's pretty good at saying, enough is enough. It's done.
Okay, so every band, every producer deserve Shirley Manson, right?
Well, Shirley's the MVP of Garbage. I mean, she has such a strong voice and persona, and writes great lyrics. And she has a voice, she's very opinionated. And a lot of our fans, they understand what she's talking about. I think they commiserate with her in the sense that they understand it, and maybe they have some of the same feelings too. And her voice is so strong that allows Garbage as a band to go on all these different tangents sonically. We can embrace electronica. The last song on the record, "The City Will Kill You," is very much a film noir song, with horns and strings, and it doesn't have really a verse chorus structure at all. And yet Shirley's voice sort of goes through it and holds it, glues it all together while we sort of go on these sonic tangents. And that's been on every Garbage record. There's not a specific sound that Garbage has from song to song, but Shirley's voice being front and center anchors all the songs. And even if we try not to sound like Garbage, we still sound like Garbage.
I think it's part of the business. There's going to be a deluxe edition of the record with some can we say, outtakes, some cover songs like Bowie song and a version of Because the Night. How do you decide to not put all those songs into the standard version of the record?
Well, I think the label wanted to do some special packaging, and initially we weren't going to do that. We were just going to put out the album as is. And one of the reasons we decided to add those bonus tracks is some of those were record store day singles, and they only came out as vinyl, so they haven't really even been released in a digital format. One of my favorite songs on there is "The Chemicals," featuring Brian O'Bear from Silver Sun Pickups. We love Brian and Silver Sun. I produced the last Silver Sun Pickup records,
Yes,
Widow's Weed.
2019.
So I'm very close to the band. But I always loved that song, and that never really got a proper release. There's a great video on YouTube of The Chemicals, if you see it. But Shirley and Brian did a duet, and it's kind of cool because you think the man would sing the lower part and the woman would sing the higher part. But in this song, Shirley sings the lower vocal and Brian sings the high vocals. And it's just really cool because they sing harmonies the entire song all the way through. So check out The Chemicals. It's pretty rad.
I will. I guess that the very first day that I had my own show at the radio here on Virgin, I went to see the same night to Silver Sun Pickup show. They were opening for Placebo. I guess they were touring Europe.
Oh, yeah.
I love that band.
They're great. Silver Suns are a great live band. I mean, they're super cool people, the nicest people in the world. But Brian is a virtuoso guitarist. I mean, he's so good. He can kind of play anything. If you go play some speed metal, he'll go. He's so good. He can play jazz and country music, and he's also just like I said, the super coolest dude in the world. So I just started doing some pre-production on the new Silver Suns record, which hopefully we're going to record at some point later this year.
That's great. That's good to know. The very last question then, I'm going to thank you for your time. It's going to be, is there any record you would like to be part of, but you haven't got the chance to?
Oh man, a lot of people ask me, is there anybody you want to produce now or anything you wish you had done in the past? The only thing that comes to mind is when I was working with Dave Grohl on Sound City. It's a documentary about the studio, but also about music collaborations. And one day we heard that Neil Young was going to come to Dave's studio 606, and they were going to record with Neil on guitar and Dave on drums and Chris Novoselic on bass. So basically Nirvana without Kurt, but with Neil Young. And I know for a fact that if Neil played with Dave and Chris, he would be over the moon. And it would be like Crazy Horse on steroids. And I just know he would fall in love with playing with them. And, to me, if he played with them, he'd go, this sounds pretty good. Let's go on tour. And then we went out there the day, everything was set up. Neil's crew came down, his guitar amps, everything was set. We were all ready to go. And then we got a call. He had put a book out, was on a book tour, and his flight had got canceled from, I don't remember where he was coming from, but he couldn't make it in, and then had to go get routed somewhere else for another talk on the book tour. So we tried to reschedule the date, and it never happened. So that's the only thing I wish that I'd been part of. I wish Neil Young would have jammed with Dave and Chris, because I know it would have been really special.
Wow, I can barely imagine that historical moment. Mr. Butch, thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I hope we're going to make it over there sometime on tour, either later this year or early in 2022, because seems like it's been a long time since we've been out, playing in front of our fans. So we hope it's going to happen soon.
Thank you so much. We wait for you. Thanks.
All right, cool.
Virgin Radio, Style Rock.